I walk 6 miles every day in my house and I don't have a treadmill. And you can do the same thing if you want to. So in the process of losing 65 pounds and maintaining that weight loss, I have basically had 2 parts to my plan. The first part was intermittent fasting. That's my eating plan. But then the other part, which I think is almost as important, is the moving that I do. And that's, I do 6 miles of walking every single day. Now, I will say, when it comes to exercise, my tendency would be I enjoy high intensity, heavy weights, really difficult exercise. But what I found was I can't stick to that consistently over the long term. I just, I start out strong and then I kind of fizzle out. I tried CrossFit, I tried a lot of different things, powerlifting. I enjoyed all of that, but I always tended to get injured or just didn't stick with it, or I would find ways to make excuses. But I kind of landed on walking out of desperation because I was injured and I couldn't really do much else. And when I started to consistently walk, I realized I felt a lot better, and I've just been able to stick with it over the long term. And I was able to kind of just excuse-proof my workout routine. So how do I excuse-proof myself? Well, even when I started walking, even though it was very easy, there were a couple of things that I knew that would hold me back from doing it every day. And the first one was pace. So I've told myself I can go as slow as I want. Like, I don't worry about my pace. Like, if I just feel, tired one day, I'm like, well, you can just get them in real slow today if that's what you feel like. I also decided to start walking in my house. When I started getting steps in consistently, I started to notice that I would still have an excuse. Like, for example, if I waited too late in the day to start getting my steps in, I felt weird about being outside in my neighborhood, like really late at night walking around. Like, I thought that I looked suspicious, so I didn't like to do that. So that kept me from getting my steps in. So one day I just said, all right, you know what? I wonder if I can get my steps in, all of them, in my house. And then that'll just show me that I never have an excuse. And so that's what I started to do. When I realized that I could do them in my house, then I knew that weather could no longer be a factor, that basically I would have no excuse not to get my steps in. And so that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years now. I just consistently walk in my house, and it's just been a great way for me to be consistent. Now, let's go ahead and get it out of the way that walking doesn't burn a whole lot of calories. As far as the amount of time it takes to burn calories is longer, okay? But a good rule of thumb that I've researched, like how many calories are you burning, it's about 100 calories per mile. Now that depends, like if you're lighter and you're walking slower, that's going to be less than when you are heavier and you're walking faster. So if you're walking 6 miles a day, that's like about 600 calories, which is really pretty good considering that, like, I read an article about CrossFit, for example. That's a much more intense workout and you're burning about 260 calories. It's in 20 minutes, but still, if you're just consistently over time walking a long distance, you're burning a lot more calories. That being said, calorie burn is important, but really you can never outrun or outwalk your fork. So it's very easy to just consume those calories back in, which is why I really consider the eating side of the equation to be really more important. I don't know how many people I've talked to and they're really frustrated because they're walking, they're getting steps in, but they're not losing any weight. And really, what I found was I didn't start to notice any kind of weight loss results until I changed my eating. So as far as time commitment goes, because that is a thing, people wonder, like, how long does it take you? That's a very common question I get. And it's about a couple of hours every day. Now, it could be shorter if I wanted to speed walk, which I do not. So I just like to walk around and get steps in. Like, I don't put pressure on myself to walk fast, but I just want to get those steps in every day. And I usually don't do it all in one long session. I generally break it out throughout the day, and I'll get some in the morning when I first wake up. I'll get some in a little bit later in the day when, during the morning, there's usually a period of time where I'm just kind of like, I can't focus, so I just get up and get some steps in. Same thing in the afternoon. Generally, there's that laggy time, so I can get up and do some more steps, and then I'll get the rest of them in the evening. Okay, now I know walking for 2 hours probably seems really boring, but what I found is I had to bribe myself at first. I just told myself, okay, you're gonna get these steps in, but if you want, you can watch as much Netflix as you want. So I watched Netflix and Amazon Prime, and I just walked around my house watching Netflix, and I was able to binge watch and not feel guilty because I was, getting my steps in. So that was something that allowed me to really, when I was getting into the habit, I just had to bribe myself. Another thing that I do sometimes is I'm on social media while I'm getting my steps in because, again, I don't feel guilty if I'm up walking around. You could also listen to audiobooks like Audible. You could get on there, get a subscription, and just listen to audiobooks while you're walking. So even like a comedian stand-up routine, like Jim Gaffigan's on Spotify, and it was hilarious. Like I was walking around laughing, listening to him, and it just made the steps fly by. Another great way to spend your time when you're walking is to talk to somebody on the phone. Like if you like talking on the phone, I'm not a big fan of it, but there are some people who refuse to text and email that I'll call and catch up with, and that can be fun. It can be a great way to make the time go by quicker. And then lastly, what I really love the most right now is podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. There are so many good ones. It's like no matter what you're interested in, there's a podcast for that. So if you'd like to get started walking, here is what I would do. So first you need to get a pedometer. I personally have a Fitbit Alta, you can see there, and I love it, but you could also just use your smartphone as a pedometer. And so when you do that, pretty much with any health app, you can set step goals and things like that. Set a goal, like make it something that you can be proud of yourself for, like something that's going to motivate you. For example, for me, 6 miles a day, I feel proud of that. It's like no matter what, no matter how crappy my day is otherwise, I know that I accomplished 6 miles, and that still makes me proud. Even though I'm very used to it and it's just not as big of a challenge as it used to be, it still feels like a great achievement every day. And so once you set up your goal, commit to it. Just tell yourself, I'm gonna do this. And really, it takes about 66 days to get a habit ingrained. I know a lot of people say 21, but I was just reading a book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, and he pointed out there are studies that basically say 66 days is kind of the median. Sometimes it even takes longer than that, but basically, take at least 66 days of this to really get it ingrained as a habit. So, once you've made a goal, you've committed to it, it's just time to start walking. Just get up and walk around your house, and you just put one foot in front of the other until you reach your step goal. It's just that simple. So I hope that helps clarify like how I do my steps and everything. If you'd like, you can be my friend on Fitbit. I'll leave the link in the description below. And also, if you have some tips and tricks on how to make walking, easier or more enjoyable, leave it in the comments below. Another thing I do, I forgot to mention, I work out what I'm going to say in these videos while I'm walking around. I just make notes on my dry erase board, and I'm just, I'm working while I'm walking. I've also found that I can, go through emails and make calls and things like that while I'm getting my steps in. So I hope that helps. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below.